Okay. Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us. My name is Rose, and I'll be moderating today's free event. Please feel free to use the chat function if you have any questions during the presentation, and Sam will answer them when he comes to his question and answer segments. If you need the PMI PDU activity ID, you'll see it on the screen now, but we will also show it when the presentation is over. Today's presenter is Microsoft Project MVP Sam Huffman. Sam is one of the Versatile Company's most requested instructors, so we are very excited to have him presenting for MPUG today. And I'll let Sam introduce himself as well, and right now I will hand the presentation over to him.
Hello everyone, this is Sam Huffman, and I'm going to hope that you all can see the screen just fine at this point. This is probably not, huh?
Nope, we can see your screen just great.
Can you see it? Okay,
yep.
Outstanding, great. This is a presentation on what's called Microsoft Project Do's and Don'ts. Now, I designed this initially for the casual MS Project user. And that's the person that is, their boss walks in their office one day and says, you know what, Jim, Jill, whatever your name is, you are now a project manager. And so you're given a tool now to begin to use in your management practices. Well, project management tools are not known to be super friendly in a lot of cases. MS Project is to a degree. Sometimes, however, there's little nuances that we need to understand and get a grasp of before we can say that, okay, this is a fully fledged, well-formed project plan. So again, the name of it is Do's and Don'ts, and I'm hoping that this next hour is one of those hours that you get during your career that you say, this is one of the most valuable hours that I could have spent in my career. My goal here is to give you 9, if you will, 9 items that 9 problems in project. And these are common. So let me start off by just giving you a little bit more info here about me. Here I am. I'm a senior trainer at the Versatile Company, and you can see by the picture that I'm a graybeard. Been around a long time, saw a lot of issues in the discipline of project management, portfolio management, and of course in the tools of project management. I've got a couple of hints for you here on this slide. The first is the Versatile Company's website has a tremendous amount of information on the discipline of project management. So there it is. Be my guest. Go look at it. And I encourage you to not just scan, but to poke around in both the website and my personal blog. The blog has got a lot of information in MS Project in various versions. Most of the things that I discuss in that blog are agnostic to version, meaning they tend to transcend the version and simply be an issue, a problem, a nuance, something that you need to be aware of in MS Project, along with the tools of the trade, the techniques, and so on. Third item there, you can see how to reach me. I try to be as open and as available as I can be, and I respond to emails. Now, sometimes I'm on the other side of the globe, so it'll take me a day to get to you, but I will respond. Naturally, and finally here, you're here courtesy of MPUG, the Project Users Group. They're going to be doing some things with this slide deck that will be useful to you and also offer you other types of resource as well. Now, what are we doing today? Okay, so here's what we're doing. The 9 common mistakes I was talking about. These are not just things that occasionally occur. These are mistakes that I have seen time and time again in the use of this tool. we're talking about just problems and issues that are referred to me on a daily basis. And I want to show you how to make them and how not to make them, and how to get more from Microsoft Project without all of the problems that are involved in working around an issue. You may not have all of the information that you need in order to solve it. I'll show them to you. Again, this is not version specific. This is a version agnostic presentation. Now, those of you that have taken training from me before or attended one of my webinars before, you know that I like to go from problem to solution, problem to solution. I like to go from the easy to the complex. So I'm trying to present and give you specifics here in project. I encourage you to, if you do have a question, we should have plenty of time in this webinar, so if you do have a question, please save it till the Q&A, till the final part of the webinar. Or if it's something that's just burning, like, go ahead and put it in the chat, and I'll be happy to follow that chat and see what is transpiring there. Now, the format that I'm going to be using today is I'll be showing you a PowerPoint slide that represents the problem, and then I will demonstrate it in Microsoft Project. I just happen to be using Project 2013. We could be using Project 2003 or Project 98 for the most part. Will present the same opportunities for a mistake as Project 2013. So let's get started here so that we do have time for that Q&A. Here's our first problem here, including summary tasks in project sequencing. Now I know that a lot of you folks that are out there, it do include your project summary tasks in sequencing. And some of you are probably scratching your head right now saying, wait a minute, what does he mean that this is a mistake? Well, let me demonstrate this to you. I'm going to go into project now and just kind of set up the scenario for you. So here we go. In Microsoft Project, summary tasks, for those of you that are not aware of them, are those activities that represent subtasks. So if you're looking at the screen now, notice that there's a task number 1 here, the title, includes summary tasks in your project sequencing, and then under that there's 2 sub-summaries, and under them are 2 final tasks. So when we say summary tasks, we're talking about tasks that organize, tasks that represent those tasks subordinated or subbed under them. So summary 2, for example, takes the details from tasks 3 and 4 and represents the sum. This information rolls up to the summary task. So things like the cost of tasks 3 and 4 and the work in tasks 3 and 4 will roll up to the summary activities, and then from there the summary activities roll up their data into the upper level summary until we finally get to the project level, where I'm pointing at right now. And at the project level we capture the project data. So this outlining function, outlining feature, gives you the opportunity to summarize. Now, what is not represented is duration. For summary tasks, that's the amount of time here, the length of the tasks. The amount of time is represented from the start of the earliest task to the finish of the latest. So it's not the sum of the durations, it's just those 2 points that roll up. Now, a couple of concepts here. Sequencing activities. If we sequence tasks 1 and 2 as an example, so I'll highlight them on the task tab. I'll click on the link button that's in the schedule subgroup. You'll notice that a link is created. I want to zoom in here for a moment. These links in between tasks are within a summary level. So these tasks are within this summary level. these tasks are within this summary level. Remember what they represent. The summaries are representing the details of the tasks that are under them. So if we needed to, for example, to ensure that one task in one level followed a task in another level, oftentimes I'll see an individual go, you know, I'm not sure which task in this first level is going to be the predecessor, the driving task in another level, so I'll just link my two summary tasks as well. So they highlight the summaries and they link the summaries, thereby not understanding and creating an error, potential anyway, error situation. When summary tasks are included in the linking, in the sequencing, you greatly increase the chance for extending your project duration. Let me say that again in case you missed it. When summary tasks are included in the sequencing, you greatly increase the chance for extending your project's duration. And if you watch the screen, allow me to show you why. If my task 1, the task where I'm circling, is to be the predecessor, the task that drives, task 3, we would expect task 3 to move into the beginning of the week in which it's currently being scheduled. When I create that link, here we go, the link is created, but the schedule cannot allow task 3 to move in. And the reason is because the summary tasks are sequenced. These two summary tasks in English means the first summary task must be completed before any task in the second summary can start. Okay, thereby extending the project duration by this amount, by the amount that it could have moved in. Once or twice in a project may not be a big deal to the schedule, but a large project that occurs over a great deal of time, the more of these, the bigger the opportunity for a schedule that is ineffectual at best and possibly not tenable to begin with. As I unlink these tasks, the summaries, watch what happens to the second set of tasks here. By taking the summary tasks out of the sequence, I can now accommodate the link between activity task 1 and activity task 3 and schedule it as assertively or as aggressively as I want to. This difference in the time frame can be the difference in having a tenable project and not having a tenable project. So, rule of thumb, don't include summary tasks in your project sequencing. Now, if it is true that an entire phase or an entire summary level has to be done before an entire summary level, then one of the other best practices is to keep your sequencing within the summary level, okay, and then but not cross those summary task boundaries. So in other words, your summaries could be linked, summary tasks could be linked, but within each summary level list of activities, those sequences don't move, don't link outside. Now, that's number 1. Let me go back now to the second in my list here of activities, including summary tasks and project sequencing. Until you're absolutely aware, absolutely sure, then I would not have that sequencing at the summary level. Second in our list, assigning resources to summary tasks. And once again, I know that some of you do that, and I know that that is an easy way of assigning people and in having a group of people work on a group of tasks rather than resourcing tasks individually. But you set up a potential issue. Allow me to show you. I'll move to the second in our tests here, in our discussion. Here we go. Assigning resources to summary tasks. Normally, when we're assigning resources, people, other types of resources, they belong on activities, as we see here. So if I were to assign the resource to the resource tab, and I'll just assign myself. Here we go. There's Sam. And no problem. The first task I'm assigned to occurs in 1 week, the second task in another week. No issue whatsoever. I put the work field adjacent to the task fields so that we could see that roll-up that I was talking about in the previous example. So here's a 2-day task, 2 days, 8-hour days, 16 hours on this task, 16 hours on the first task. That information rolls up to 32. Pretty easy to see. But watch what happens when I assign a resource to the summary task right here. Here we go. I'm going to assign the same resource now. 16 and 16, 2 days on each of those 2 tasks. But when you assign the resource to the summary task, it's assigned for the entire duration. So I have taken the amount of effort and doubled it with the one assignment. And yes, you can see on the left-hand side that we're getting the over-allocation icons. That's these red dudes here on the right-hand side, these red guys. They're just saying that each task is over-allocated. Notice that it even shows for the summary task here. If we were to try to resolve this problem, that's a process called leveling in this tool. Project would try to delay activities until that over-allocation was reduced. In this case, because the tasks are within the summary, it cannot be resolved. Watch this, guys. I'm going to choose my tasks. I'm going to level that selection of tasks, and Project will instantly tell me the story. This over-allocation cannot be resolved because the resource is assigned to a combination of assignments and at the summary task level here on the second summary task. Assign resource to summary tasks and its subordinates. Try removing the assignment from one or the other. Now, what this is saying to us is assign your resources here or assign your resources here. But the error situation is when you assign the resources to both. That's when we get into over-allocations that cannot be resolved. If you are in previous versions of Project and you're seeing problems with leveling, have a close look and make sure that you don't have resources assigned to the summary tasks if you did not intend them to be assigned to the summary task. But one or the other, just make sure that when the error situation again is when you jump into having both tasks and summary tasks have folks represented on them. Having said all that, I'm going to remove that resource and get back to a state of grace here with my project plan. Project do's and don'ts, assigning resources to summary tasks. Just say no. Now, third item in our list of do's and don'ts. Leveling resources without any analysis whatsoever. I have seen this occur time and again in visits to sites. Here we go. What we're looking at now is just a set of tasks. Tasks 7 through 10 in our list here on the third summary. Level resources without analysis. There are endless permutations to task definitions and resource definitions. And what drives the schedule, allow me to show you this. I'm just going to use the tasks themselves, no summaries, and I'll assign a resource. Again, I'm going to assign myself. The resource, me, working on 4 tasks concurrently, has driven the over allocations, and project is happy to tell me what the problem is, that the task is over allocated. So a lot of folks say, okay, look, you know, the thing is, this tool is marvelous. It's got this magic button that resolves conflicts, and so they'll click on the level selection and they'll go right on into the next phase or next set of tasks without ever looking at the results. Now, this is a Gantt chart. It's the most popular view in MS Project, but I will encourage you to not use it in leveling. I would encourage you to use a different type of Gantt chart in leveling to help you understand things like delay, where it is, which tasks have it, and then I'll also show you one other aspect of this to watch out for. So the chart that I like to use when I'm leveling is called a leveling Gantt. Now I'll just roll this up again so we don't see everything here. Wow, that looks like a busy Gantt chart. What the heck is going on? Well, without analysis, we see bars move. You saw that occur in leveling. With a little bit of analysis and the help of a specific view, check out what you can see. So let me describe this. These kind of washed out gray bars, that is the pre-leveled position of the tasks in the timeline. The colored bars are representing the current schedule of the task in the timeline. The gold bar right here is representing the amount of leveling delay imposed in order to reduce the overallocation or eliminate it. And this little tiny bar on the back is telling you how much farther a task can be delayed, how much further it can be delayed in your timeline. So you're getting a snapshot here of what happened when you leveled your project. So in terms of schedule and in terms of delay. It's called the leveling Gantt. Encourage you to have a look at this. Now, notice also that the leveling delay field is represented here, showing you how many days tasks had to be delayed in order to accommodate. The other thing that should have caught your eye here is the pattern that project chose. In other words, the first task, task 7, was delayed the furthest, task 8 next furthest, and so on. So there was something in action here, some type of property facilitated this leveling exercise. So what the heck could it be? This is showing you the effects. To find out what happened, you'd have to look at the individual task properties. You would double-click on a task. I'll double-click on task 7 here. That'll bring up the task information dialog. On the General tab, I can see a great deal of information, but one thing that catches my eye over here is the priority of the task. This is telling project the priority of the activity for leveling purposes. The numbers go from 1 to 1,000, 1 being the least priority, 1,000 being the highest priority. So the project team elected to make 500 the default, which is middle of the road. This one has a higher priority, okay? But it was still the first one that was pushed out. Let's go to the next task, and I'll show you why. It's because I chose increasing levels of priority for each task. So task 7 was 600, task 8 was 700, task 9 800 or 900, and then last, the highest priority was task 10. Task 10's priority of 900 was essentially do not level. Project, leave this task in place. So you can prioritize, but in project, prioritization is used in leveling the tasks themselves. Be careful. Use a little analysis after and during the leveling of your tasks. I'm going to undo this now and get back to that pristine shape that I wanted to be in. Next on our hit list, constraining activities. Now, before we go any further, I'd like you folks to understand what I mean by constraining. Constraining means not allowing project to schedule where it wants. It means we are telling project that either a start date or a finish date is involved, and a particular finish date or start date is involved in the scheduling of the task. I'll demonstrate this and what it can do for us, do to us as well. Here we go. Constraining activities. Now, I've put a constraint on the second task in this scenario, constrain activities. Task 11 is unconstrained. When you have a constraint, you'll see what looks like a calendar appear in your indicators field. This calendar is also giving you a hint as to the type of constraint. So when you see a calendar with a blue dot, folks, that's telling you that you've got a partial constraint, meaning a start or a finish has some type of minor constraint on it. When you see a red marker in that calendar, that is a absolute constraint. What it means is that the task is tied directly to the time scale in the dates that was given to the activity. I'll show you both of those in just a moment here. So this is your first clue that in terms of the tasks in the sequence, there may be some schedule issues or possibly not even a tenable project schedule from that point forward. Let me show you what I'm getting at. Task 12. Double click on it. Under the Advanced tab, you'll see the constraint type is start no earlier than. And then there's a constraint date. So what this is doing is it's locking this second activity to the date, to this date. It can't start any earlier or be more aggressive. Project cannot schedule any earlier than a particular date. It can move it forward, but it can't move it forward, meaning in the future, but it can't move it back in a more aggressive style. So if I make the duration of this top task 5 days, it can push the task out 7 days. Here's 7 days. So the task goes out, but if I were to make it, say, a half of a day, or maybe even less, 0.25 days, it's still not able to schedule the task earlier than the constraint date. If I take that same constraint and make it an absolute constraint, must start on 1/8. First of all, project doesn't like absolute constraints, so it's going to start giving you questions from the planning wizard. I'm going to tell project I want to continue. And at this point, that absolute constraint is applied. When you look at the calendar in the icon in the indicators field, you'll see the red dot I was talking about. Now this can be a schedule killer. watch the screen as I increase the duration of the predecessor, bearing in mind as the predecessor approaches the task start in a schedule, we would hopefully see that task begin to back up into the future. Here we go. Here's 4 days of activity. And by increasing it to 5, we'll see the start of task 11 move to the right. But what you will see with this type of constraint is that it simply brings up an error message and then allows it. Now, I want to show you one of the hints that there is an issue. It's right here. This is when the task should be pushed out into the future, but can't because of the doggone constraint that we applied to it. It is locked to the time scale, so that no matter what we do with our predecessor, I'll increase this to 10 days to make the point. The second task will not move. Now, if there are tasks that follow task 12 that are sequenced with it, that part of the schedule is probably untenable if it's a true relationship. Watch out for constraints. They can completely undermine a project schedule. How do you get constraints? Well, you can go in as I did and put them right on. Just here we go. Just in the Advanced tab, in the Properties box, the Task Information box, there's a number of constraints that you can apply. As soon as possible is no constraint, what I just selected. When I click it, project then schedules the successor task correctly. Now, you can drag tasks. Nervous clickers like me that go out and click on bars, that can create an issue. That can create a constraint. Typing in a date into the start or finish field will create a constraint, a partial constraint. Start no earlier than, finish no earlier than, or no later than. Those types of constraints can be applied with that type of activity. So just watch out for them. They can come back and haunt you in terms of your project schedule. Let's see what's next on our hit list here. Oh, here's one of my favorites. This is scheduling projects as late as possible. Now, when I say as late as possible, I mean to a specific date. Many of you have managers or are managers with a delivery date for your project. And you know the delivery date may not know all of the tasks yet in the project, but you know some of the tasks in the project. And you just know that you gotta hit a specific date. So there's a very tempting feature in this product that I will show you. My advice to you is it's great for what ifs. For what if, what is the starting date if I have to, if I have a set of tasks to create a product, but not necessarily clearly understandable. So here we go. I'm going to bring this up and just to show it to you. Once again, I'll get to the topic. So scheduling project tasks as late as possible. So here's our project, and our project is going out into the week of January 12th. So if that's my deadline, I may want to tell project, hey, go ahead, project, in the project tab and project information, schedule this from the project finish date out there. Now, generally speaking, when I've seen a PM do this, they click on OK and they're done with it without ever reading the item, the sentence immediately underneath the schedule from selection. Let me bring it up for you so you can see it. All tasks begin as late as possible. Operative word here is that one. What this effectively does is reverses the logic. So now that, let's see, make sure that we're on, yeah, I'll choose the project finish date and OK it. Notice that the finish date for the last task moved out to the finish date of the project, and then it calculated the start date. That start date was the latest date that the predecessor can finish. So if I increase my duration now, normal logic says if I increase the duration, that my project task, here number 14, will move out into the future. But with this type of sequencing, all is not obvious. So watch what happens over here as I increase the duration of task 13 to 4 days and not 2. You seeing this? We're scheduling this way. So when, that is to say this way, starting from the finish date and calculating start dates. So we'll start here and go to here. This determines the finish of the previous task. The duration then determines the late start date for each task to hit its latest finish date. Now, what makes this confusing is that it effectively turns as soon as a task can occur and as late as a task can occur into the same logic. They mean the same thing in this method of scheduling. It's used a lot in aeronautics and space. It's used a lot as a just-in-time scheduling method, but the folks that use this in this way understand that we're going backwards and that these dates that we're seeing, particularly the start and finish dates of each task, represent the latest they can occur. The goal is to start them and finish them earlier than the schedule would indicate. Now, all else being equal, let me get this back down now to 2 days, or 4 days rather. Here we go. I'll change my method back to the project start date, increase my duration to 6 days, and watch what happens now with our schedule. You can begin to see it pushing into the future. This is the way most of us think, is that if I do something today, then what am I going to do tomorrow, and so on. So we begin to use the sequencing and the durations of the tasks in the way that we think rather than in the reverse. So a little bit of caution. It's not that it can ruin a project using this method. It's that we have to be always thinking and very aware of how we're scheduling, what's being scheduled, and this whole notion of as late as possible and as soon as possible being the same set of dates. Watch out for it. It can come back and bite you. Get to our next item on our list. This one is one of my favorites. It's inadequate baselining. Now, baselining, for those of you that don't know, is taking a snapshot of an existing schedule so that as the tasks in the project occur and are tracked, you can compare the existing state of the project with the baseline state of the project. So you get a feel for where there is variance between the two. Things taking longer than expected, but we'll have finish variance. Tasks that occur earlier or later will have start variance. And if there's a difference in durations, the task will have schedule variance. Not only can you see them, but you can also see the details and the data behind that. Now, in project, I'll get back to the inadequate baseline here. In project, when you baseline, it's not always obvious that a baseline exists. So, for example, here, if I were to highlight my two tasks, let me link them so we got a little bit of a schedule here. Task tab, create a link, and then I'll just highlight these three tasks. Go to my project tab, set the baseline. For my selected tasks, what I've done is I've just selected a few tasks in my whole list. So I'm using selected tasks. If you're wondering if you can baseline a single task, here's your hint. Yes. I'll click on OK. And there's no lights that go off. There's no messages that say, you have now baselined, Sam. None of that occurs. It just does it. So baselines by default here in the Gantt chart are not visible. Now, if you go to your Format tab, then you can show them through a little bit of formatting. Format tab, and then under the bar styles group, choose the baseline. It'll give you the date that you baselined, and you'll see that now there is a bar representing the baseline and representing the current state of the task. So that's one way to see the baseline. I'm going to turn it off so I can show you yet another type of Gantt chart. This is called the tracking Gantt. We've seen the leveling Gantt. Well, this Gantt chart is going to show us tracking. And once again, I'll filter out all the details of this. Okay, so here is a tracking Gantt. By default, it's going to show us the baseline, as well as via tables the idea of variance. Now, right now, this table is we've seen no variance because we're not tracking at all. We've seen nothing occur. Watch what happens, guys, when I delay. I'm going to intentionally constrain the two tasks by moving them into the next week. Notice that now you're seeing variance occur. This is when we wanted to perform the task. Let me zoom in so we can see it. This is when we wanted to perform the first task, but currently it's in a different time period. The difference between those two is variance. Start variance and finish variance. As the task was delayed, so is its successor, and so again you have variance. Now, if we start working, and the actual work doesn't match up with the baseline work, that's also set when you baseline, then you'll see work variance. If there's a difference in cost, you'll see cost variance. Those variances that occur are because of changes, the differences between existing and the baseline events. I advise you to use your tracking Gantt. That is designed to show you this. I also encourage you to use a specific table, the variance table. You can get there by going to the View tab, and then in the tables, there it is, there's variance, or by right-clicking in your Select All button. Just like in Excel, there's a button above the ID numbers. Right-click, and it shows you the tables that you currently have. Entry is the default, but entry is not going to show you the things that we're looking for. In this case, the variance. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next item. Be careful here with your baseline. Understand it. Get to analyze it through a specific view. The tracking Gantt is a great view for you. Next item. This one is it deals with a feature that is not obvious in project, and that is the concept of an elapsed duration. You know, or should know by now, that when you put a duration or assign a duration to a task, that is working duration, meaning working days. So if you had, for example, a 2-day activity that started on a Friday, you would know that it would finish on Monday the next week. That would be a 2-day normal duration. But if you use an elapsed duration, it's going to finish on Saturday. It's consecutive time from the time of the start until that duration is eaten up on a minute-by-minute basis. So here's a big difference. A day is 8 hours, 8 working hours. An elapsed day is 24. A week is 5 working days. So if you use 1 W in a duration, you get a 5-day duration task. And it might be split over a weekend. If you tell a project that it is an elapsed week, an EW, 1 EW, then you will get 7 consecutive days. So it's different standards. Duration by default deals with work, but elapsed duration is just consecutive or contiguous calendar time. So I want to demo this and go kind of slowly through it so you can see it in action here. Using an elapsed duration, number 7 on our list here. So here we have two tasks. They start on a Monday and they're each 3 days in duration. You can see that there's a difference in how it is noted. 3 days is working duration. 3 days is this consecutive time that we're talking about. And if I were to tell a project that a task was, say, 6 days, that means show me that week, okay, plus go into the next week. We'll see that we've now gone, even though there's 6 days, notice that it's almost 10 days or 9 days here in terms of the bar itself, but only 6 of those days are working days. But if I chose 6 days, 6 ED, I get a slightly different bar. This one is exactly 6 days in duration. Now, the first thought here is, oh, that's great. That looks at a calendar kind of the way I look at a calendar. 6 days means 6 days from today, not 6 working days from today. But don't fool yourself. This can have a huge ramification. I'm going to assign 1 resource to both of these. And yes, it will be over-allocated, but I want to show you the ramifications. So assign a resource to a 6-day task with an 8-hour calendar, 48 hours of work. Assign a resource to a task that is elapsed durations, and you're talking about giving that resource a 24-hour day for the run of that duration. So 144 hours of straight work, you know, this person would probably drop at the end of it. So resources that you would assign to an elapsed duration event would be things like machinery that can be running 24/7, not people. Durations themselves are what are used for the human aspect of the project. Things like servers backing up or being upgraded, or those types of tasks where we are working 24/7, that's what was intended here with the elapsed duration units. Be careful in using people with it, however. You get these kinds of, well, very hard on people. Just cannot work that type of a duration, that much work consecutive and contiguously. Elapsed durations. I encourage you to get into the help, look at them in terms of their definition, maybe even experiment with it so you can see these two very, very different approaches to duration in Microsoft Project. Okay, we're going to the next item, which is an interesting one. It's incorrect calendar association. This is one of those areas of project that is the most misunderstood and confusing. The idea of a calendar driving a task, driving a person, driving a shift, and driving a project. And then there's the complication. What if any of those calendars are in conflict with any of the others? Is there a hierarchy? So when I'm saying incorrect calendar association, what I mean is that we're violating that hierarchy in some way, creating an issue in Microsoft Project. Let's look at Project. Okay, now I've got two tasks, task 19, task 20. Task 19 is the predecessor to task 20. We're in the tracking Gantt. There's no baseline. There is a distance in time between these two activities. The pink or red color that you're seeing on this bar is representing that it can't be delayed any further. It's gone as far as it can. It's at the end of the project. But what's up here? What's going on here with this this difference between these dates? I have a question there. What is going on? I understand project management, and if we've got a sequence here, we should see that last activity over in this first week, not in the last week. Well, what's going on here is that there was a calendar associated with task 20. This is the icon that you'll see when a calendar is associated with a task. And you heard me correctly, you can associate a calendar to an activity. And when it is associated with that activity, you can completely disrupt your project and, in fact, undermine your schedule. So I'm going to show you this so you can see where it is. I'll double-click on 20. And on the Advanced tab, down in the Calendar section, there is a calendar called Thursday. So what I did is I created a calendar that would, on purpose, kind of mess up the schedule here for this task. Not for any specific purpose, but to simply show you a problem situation. So this calendar has been applied to the activity. I'd also like to point out one other thing to you here on this particular dialog. It's right here. You have the chance when you're applying a calendar to not only undermine your project, but to undermine your resources as well. When that box is checked, the resources are going to work when the task calendar says it's a working day, even if it's a Sunday or a Saturday or a normal non-working day. So be cautious of this. This can undermine your schedule entirely. Now, in terms of calendars, I wasn't kidding when I said there's 4 types. There's the base calendar for the project. You can find that in your Project tab. In Project Information, it'll show you the calendar that's applied to your project. By default, Standard is the calendar that's associated with your project. Okay, you can have, each resource can have a resource calendar, which is basically exceptions to the base calendar for the project. And now you've seen tasks that can have calendars as well. And last but not least, you can go into your change working time and see that some calendars are associated with shifts. Like night shift, for example, has a different time period. 24-hour goes from midnight to midnight. And have shifts as well as projects as well as resource calendars. These are working resources, all of which come into play. So let me give you, as a last step here, I'm going to give you the hierarchy. First of all, the project calendar. We set the project calendar to indicate working periods. It's designed to capture all the working periods. If there is a non-working date, like let's say today was a non-working date, then that would be an exception that everyone would not work. Okay, this is a 24-hour calendar, and as you're seeing here, every day is a working day. The standard calendar, the project calendar, has Saturdays and Sundays off. No work, just during the work days. The project standard calendar is the base. A shift calendar, when it's imposed with a resource, these are assigned, if you just give me just a moment here, on the resource sheet, resources can be given a calendar that's their base that's other than the standard calendar. When a resource is using a shift calendar, then the shift calendar, which can override the base calendar, can be overridden by a resources calendar. So project calendar loses, always. Shift calendar will only win against the base calendars. Resource calendar will win in any conflict between the project and between the shift calendar. The last thing we looked at, the task calendar, can overwrite and become the trump card. This is the one that can completely trump all other calendars in any kind of a conflict. So if with that in mind, as you begin to use the product more, be aware that if you have a mismatched calendar, or incorrect calendar association, it's very possible that your schedule can be undermined and maybe not even tenable anymore. I'm sure we'll have some questions on that one. Okay. Organizing project tasks incorrectly. Now, earlier I mentioned that we can, let me just show you the entire project here for a moment, that when we organize a project, we have this outline in mind where tasks can roll up their data to summaries, and then the summaries roll up their data to the project level summary task. And that is quite a normal situation. The couple of rules of thumb here is that the tasks in any given level should add up both numerically and contextually to what's represented at the summary task level. Now let me show you what I mean. And I tried to make this as easy to understand as I could here. So in this particular example, I've got two organizations. One is letters, the other is numbers. In the letters, I see A and B rolling up their data to the letters summary task. But in numbers, I see numbers that roll up their data, but I also see a letter. So, you know, these are not alike. It can roll up numerically, but it's not going to roll up contextually. So be aware of this, that you want your context to be correct so that as you move and as you organize, you'll have the correct organization, the correct alignment of tasks, and your reporting can then follow more accurately. Just consider this. The outline of your project is the foundation for all of your reporting. So, you know, all else being equal, if these activities, and you saw this last activity now, increasing the duration of the letters, without this third activity in the project or in the summary task organization, we would show a completely different duration. So it would be very much a different project. Let me undo this and go back to see. And notice that we dropped now letters is now a shorter duration than when we had the task in the proper place. So here we go. The duration increased because the organization is now correct. That wasn't not a tenable schedule given the error in organizing the outline. Now, if you didn't know that you could outline, then make sure that you get into Project Help, have a look at this, look at the articles online, get into the blogs, you know, kind of get into the tool a bit so that you get a grasp of what outlining is. And for those of you that are further along in your project management career, think of it as WBS. In fact, check this out. I'm going to go to my Format tab and tell Project that I want an outline number, and we'll see numbers now being associated with the tasks. There's also a work breakdown structure field called WBS that will show us this number as well. Outline numbers, think of them as internal and dynamic WBS that changes with the location of the task. Useful and in alignment with the Project Management Institute and project management concepts in general. Now, you've seen 9 scenarios here, 9 potential problems in putting together a project in Microsoft Project. My challenge to you folks is to have you review your projects and see if these are peppered in your existing projects and go about the process of resolving them as I did in our discussion here today. So Rose, if you're online, I'd like to move into Q&A. We've been going here for just a little over an hour. Let's see if we can get some questions and answers here.
Sure. I just forwarded you some, but we do have some starting from the beginning of your presentation. So Don asked regarding a summary task, can you use for you can use it for a responsible person but not project oriented or assigned?
Okay, so if I understand the question, Don, what you're asking me is if I assign a resource to the summary task, but not to the tasks themselves that are within that summary, am I okay? So let me go back into project, and I'll actually go back to that particular problem. Give me just a moment here. At least I'm thinking this is what you mean. So if I have a group of resources I'm responsible for, can I assign a working resource, like I'll assign say Sarah here, to the 2 tasks. There they are. Oh, I need to get to the Gantt chart. I'll do that in a second here. And then can I assign my supervising resource, Sam, to my summary task? And the answer is yeah, you can. However, remember that that individual is assigned for the duration. Let me just do a couple of little slight modifications here. Okay. So notice this, that as I increase my duration, the hours of effort increased on each task. Okay, you can see that the duration increased, so did the effort. But my resource that was assigned to the entire duration here also increased the effort. So we're looking at 8 days, 8 total days here, 8 hours a day, 64 hours added to the existing 64 hours. I really doubt that supervisory personnel are going to work 8 hours per day supervising 2 tasks. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it seems to me that their application of time and their load would be much less than that. So I would say you could do this, but be really cautious here, because as you apply these resources, then you'll see the disparity here between the amount of effort and the duration of the summary task itself. I don't know if that was what you were thinking of or not, but you can just, there's all types of issues you can get into here with assigning resources to these summary tasks. Let's see, I see another one here. Alphys, should you not remove resources assigned to tasks before assigning to summary tasks. Absolutely. If I had to assign a resource to these two tasks, or I wanted to assign a resource to a group of activities. Let's say I had, instead of two tasks, let's say I had maybe 100 tasks that are underneath this of very, very short durations. I might then want to assign the resource to the summary level. But at that point, I would not assign them to the details. There would be no resource assignment at the detail level. And certainly the problem, if you remember, is when you assign the same resource to both of those levels, then you cannot resolve any kind of issue in project. Let's see here. Bert said, Sam has to do all the tasks, so there's no slack. Would be slack if different people? Yes, that's absolutely true. Why is the leveling delay in a time not working days? Bert, that is the design of the tool, is that it is in the elapsed duration units rather than in whole days or whole working days. So just the design of the tool is to impose leveling delay. That is the only time that you'll see delay used in MS Project in the leveling engine. It will not use normal fields. There's another field called delay that you can use in other strategies here, but leveling delay is used by the leveling engine in the tool. Christina, was elapsed time in 2003, or is that something new? No, I don't remember when it was started, but it was way back in the initial phases of MS Project there, Christina. I think it was like, and I could be totally wrong on this, but I think it was in Project 98 or Project 4.0 that we began to see this whole idea of the elapsed duration. Don says an E-day is 24 hours per day. Yes. Let me go over those durations again for you. An elapsed minute is 60 consecutive seconds. An elapsed hour is 60 consecutive minutes of 60 consecutive seconds. An elapsed day is from the time that its task starts, whether it's whatever the time of day it starts, one elapsed day is 24 consecutive hours of 60 consecutive minutes of 60 consecutive seconds. And it goes on like that. You know, a week, 5 days is a work week. 7 ED, or if you were to type in 1 EW, that would be a work week, which is 7 elapsed days. A month, I believe, is 22 working days, 20 or 22 working days, but in elapsed units that would be 30 elapsed days. So there is a large difference here, and bear in mind that we're talking about contiguous or consecutive time. So when a resource is assigned one of those tasks, you get into some fairly large effort units. Now, Cynthia asked, how do you set up the project hard-coded end date so we can calculate the task backwards? Okay, Cynthia, I think what you're asking me is, when I went into the project information, how did I do that? So what I did is I went to the Schedule From field, and I chose the project finish date. And what that allows you to do then is to force this hard finish date, and as you enter in your tasks and your sequences, then the starting dates are calculated. When you're using a project start date, the finish dates are calculated. Notice how that's grayed out as I chose the start date method here. Be cautious of that, though, Cynthia. That can we reverse the logic, and then it can get pretty obscure for you. And then Cynthia, I don't know if it's the same Cynthia or not, but when a project is put on hold for a while and resumed, how do we push all incompleted tasks forward to the related new resume date. Well, that's I didn't get into that at all, but there is a feature in project. So this is a good example of this. In fact, what we're on now, this assign resources to summary tasks. The green date that this line that we're seeing is representing the current date. Okay, here it is. So everything on this side of this date line should be completed, and everything on this side should be either starting a little early or not started yet. So they're just hanging out or waiting for work to be done on them. But the stuff over here should be done. So what Cynthia, I think, is asking is this. If a task is, say, here we got a little bit of progress on it, but here we are today, we don't have, that's all the progress we've got completed. Can I move all of this uncompleted and unstarted work into the current time period or a time period that I select? Now, if I can, guys, I want to show you this. So on your task tab, Cynthia, you're watching? In the tasks subgroup, task group here, under the move command, you can move the incomplete parts to a status date, or if you know you want to move it forward a week or a month, you can choose that, or a specific number of working days forward. So I'm just going to choose, just for grins, I'm going to tell project, move the incomplete parts to the status date, which is the current date, and what it does is it stops the work that's the work that was completed, and then moves the remaining work to the next working day. In this case, it would be Thursday, and then the project goes on concurrently. Now look, all of the baselines are still in place, and what you would have here, had I baseline this, would be a large amount of variance on these two tasks. And so you could be watching and seeing the impacts to your schedule on not getting the work completed. These dots that we're looking at are called ellipses, and they simply connect the stop date of the task to the resume date of the task so that you can continue on from there. It's red because it moved into became one of the critical path items in MS Project. Don't get too upset with the color change. It's just indicating that if you delay it any further, this project is going to be delayed further. That's one way of dealing with this. The other is to update the tasks on a specific date, so you can begin to watch your completion having an actual start date that's different than a baseline start date, and so on. And last but not least here, you can create your own break. So I might use the break button that's in the schedule tab and simply break a task, move that task forward in the timeline to when I want it to start, and move forward accordingly. So there's several different methods here of moving your incomplete work into a future date, but bear in mind that those are going to have schedule impacts, and this is the portion of the tool that's designed to show that to you. So Cynthia, I hope you got all that. Can you use the chat to tell me if I hit the mark or not there?
Yes, she said yes.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm sure there's other questions. Do you have some more there, Rose, for us?
Oh, yes, we have a lot.
Okay.
We have a question from Keith here. I've seen resource calendars being used to manage the fact that resources really only work 6 hours a day. Is that the best way to manage this, or should the tasks % allocation be used?
That's a good. Let me give people a foundation here of this. So in the project change working time dialog, if I were looking at a resource calendar, what we're going to see is what the base calendar is, for that resource. And then if they've got any exceptions, these would be like a week that they've got off for vacation, or it might be to control the working time. Now, so let me say this. If the resource is going to work that same 6 hours every day, then you would probably move into the work weeks and change their daily effort here. If you're, however, you're going to apply the resource at 6 hours per day and you don't care where in the day that work is performed, then you would assign the resource at units. So in this case it would be 0.75, or 6 hours out of an 8-hour day. So it depends on what you're trying to accomplish and the level of how strict you're controlling the resources day. And I'll say it again, if the resource is going to work the same 6 hours every single day, use the calendar. If the resource is going to perform 6 hours of work and you don't know, then use the percentage of allocation. What's next, Rose?
Let's see. If the task, this is from Sai, if the task is stopped and resumed multiple times, how do we see the individual stop and resume dates?
The individual stop and resume dates? In project you have fields, and the one that's going to be the obvious one here, let me hit S and you'll see start, or there it is, there's the stop date, and there's also a, if I go back and hit my, let me just escape out of this. If I hit my R's, I'll hit the resume. So that's the initial start and resume dates. After that, we're looking at splits in the task. So these are fields that you can put here. The best way to look at when work begins and ends, if you've got a lot of stop and resumes, is to go to your View tab and look at either the task usage view, which I don't have. I'm sorry. Let me assign a resource here, and we can look at the task usage then. In fact, I'm going to select all of my tasks so we see everything. And I'll just assign some resources here to summaries 1 and 2 here. And I'm just going to assign them all. There we go. The way to look at stop and resumes over time is to go into your task usage, which is designed by default to show you where work occurs and where it's broken. So you'll see on a daily basis where the gaps are and where work resumes again. That's not a perfect solution for you, but you're not going to have multiple stop and resume fields. You're going to have the initial one and then some type of view such as this indicating where that work begins and ends. So you can see the tasks, and then under the task is shown the assignments, the amount of effort, and then the roll-up to the task at the task level. Likewise, if you're trying to see what those costs are, you would right-click over in the usage view and include the cost factor for the resource. So you can format this to give you the amount of detail that you want and the granularity that you want. If you don't want to see full days, you can continue to zoom in until you see individual elements of the day, 4, 8, 12, and so on, and just keep right on going there until you get to the level of granularity. I like the default in the tool, which is the daily basis, where you can just click right into the time scale and select your own. That's about the best answer I can give you.
That's great. We have another question from Michelle. Is there a way to add holidays to the default standard calendar so all new projects reflect them?
Sure. Once you've gone into this change working time dialog and in the standard calendar determined your exception dates, then from that point then you need to figure out how you're going to see it in all projects. That's what she's pointing out. You can do this in your File tab. You would organize your global template. That's the template project reads, so that it knows what a calendar is and it knows what a task and a duration is. Notice that calendars can be moved from the file that you created this in to override the global template. And then once you've done that, so here, notice the copy button right now is from the global, here's the global, to the project that's open, project do's and don'ts. So right now I could overwrite a calendar in my file from the template, but if I chose the standard calendar in my project, I could now overwrite my global template. Be careful with this. Once you've established a global template, you want to protect it and not allow it to get messed up. So my advice to you would be, rather than use the standard calendar, go into your change working time and create a brand new calendar that you use on your projects. That's a copy of your standard calendar. So get it correct. Get it absolutely correct the way you want it to be. But then create a copy of it and then use that in your projects and have that available in your project standard template. What am I trying to say here? Have that available in your organizer's global template as well as the standard template. And then you've got something to draw back on in case of a massive conflict. You know, who knows, you might accidentally corrupt the calendar you're using for your projects. This would enable you the chance to, notice there's a delete key, to delete the one that's problematic, and then create a brand new calendar from the standard to start all over again. So it would minimize the amount of work that you have to do. But I would protect these out-of-the-can calendars by creating copies of them that you would use and name them accordingly. Hope that helps.
Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more question.
Okay.
Ron is asking a question regarding your 9th tip, organizing project tasks. Is the rule to place a task under a summary section of related tasks? Related tasks meaning by grouping, by function, not by resource.
Okay, let me come back and just show this. First of all, Ron, I chose a kind of a simple approach here just so that we could see that there's a difference between two levels. There's a difference between the letters and the numbers, and that was what I was trying to point out. Summary tasks can represent, they need to represent the items that are under them. So here's an example. If the letters represented, say, the tasks in Seattle in some type of a geographical sense, then what that summary task is telling me is that all of these activities occur in Seattle, while these might occur somewhere else. So summary tasks can represent things like geographical areas. They can represent addresses. I've seen that a lot in construction, where summary task is used to indicate a specific address, and everything subordinated, including other summary tasks under it, might represent the different phases or even the different functional areas in the project. So phases, geographies, whatever, the only constant and the only rule of thumb here is that the summary task represents the organizational element of the work that's under it. So you wouldn't have something like wiring and then all the tasks underneath this deal with digging ditches. Unless it's digging a ditch to put the wiring in, it wouldn't relate to in any way what the summary task might be. So just be aware that you can get some organizational mismatches, and they can create some real problems for you when you start to try to report using the tool. Back to you, Rose.
All right. Well, thank you, Sam. I think we're going to wrap it up here. I know we have a lot of questions that went unanswered, but if you could take it to mpug.com on the discussion forum, and you can type in your question there, and Sam or other experts will, or other community members will help answer your questions if it wasn't answered already. And so I'm going to show now the activity code for your PDUs. Hopefully everyone can see that. And please allow about a day or two for us to get the recording up on the website. We'll also email it out to you. I know a lot of people joined late, so we will send a link to that as well. It will also be included in next week's newsletter. If you do have any questions, tips, or feedback, we'll send out a survey after this session, but also you can email us at events@mpug.com. So the PDU code, once again, is MPUG WebnLearn 010814. And just to let everyone know, we do have another upcoming WebnLearn that you can register for on the 22nd, so that's 2 weeks from now. It's Project Online, Priming the Innovation Management Pipeline, and you can find that on the website. And next week we also have a certificate series, so that's going to be running Tuesday through Thursday. And this is a members-only event, so if you're interested, check it out on our website and join MPUG if you're not already a member. Members can register for this for free, so register for that when you get a chance. And thank you again, Sam. Great presentation. We're getting a lot of great feedback, and we hope you join us again.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, and stay away from those 9 situations, will you? Thank you a lot.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.